The pup and I are back for another unit sample. I'd love to kind of take you through, again, if you haven't watched the last two, the 2 weeks ago was building the base versus case studies and what does that mean in the context of a unit arc. Check that one out. The last one was around the question of what's more important, freedom or safety, and we built out a whole unit around that, so that's another example. And today we're going to continue. I have consistently heard both leaders and teachers talk about SEL being really important, right, for adults and students. But what we often do is we separate those things out. We don't do them as if they were part of the curriculum, right? And so I thought, how cool would it be to brainstorm a unit where we center emotion and emotional regulation and who gets to have emotion. So we also have that critical lens through an intersectional, like, feminist lens, right, where we're looking at race and gender and all sorts of things. I think this is going to be super cool, and join me on the ride. I don't absolutely love it, but I think the idea is very analytical. Who gets to feel their feelings, right, or that kind of thing. Project, I think, would be super cool for students to design and implement an intervention of some kind for creating more space for safe, of course, expressions of emotion in their communities. So it might be, their community might be their classroom, might be their friend group, sports team, a family unit. It could be in the school at large, talking about discipline policies. Could be in a different community space. We could connect to some sort of policy or legislation at the state level. I think there's a lot of options here. So the hook. I think what would be a really cool discussion to start out would be, like, do I get to feel my feelings, right? Like, where they get to just talk about this. And this might be like a really important kind of like 2-day kind of thing. We may look at some statistics the next day. I mean, one option would be to look at some statistics around things like school discipline policies and who gets to feel emotions and then who is punished for those emotions, that kind of thing. But I also think students may bring that up on their own organically. So maybe this is kind of like a write around, and this is like a verbal discussion, maybe like a circle. So maybe students are kind of processing, maybe there's like a poem or something where they, I don't know, some sort of prompt, and then they're writing about it. Do I get to feel my feelings? And then we continue that question for a second day, and now we're talking about it. So they're inwardly reflecting, maybe small group partner share, and then larger share of this class discussion wide. Okay, now build the base. If I'm thinking about feeling their feelings, right? What inspired me here is some amazing research on racialized emotion in U.S. history curriculum. And so looking at the context there, and I've posted this in the Unit Dreaming series on the search for hashtag Unit Dreaming on LinkedIn. I can also link to the post below, but I think it is fascinating, this research that was done where this researcher looked at basically white emotions were literally present in the standards. Like, they would say, use the emotion as justification for oppression. So, because white people were fearful, they did this, and it was like really repressive, right? But that white people were really the only group of people that were able to have the emotion. That was literally like a standards analysis. I think it was in Virginia, definitely Virginia or North Carolina. I can't remember. I think it was Virginia. Anyways, I think that was a really interesting context. And so it made me think about the question of who gets to feel their feelings. And so there's kind of like a gender and race analysis I think that we could do here. So a core text, this could be a social studies lesson. It could also be an ELA unit. It could be kind of mixed depending on what age group. You might even have like the same teacher teach both. So I think building the base here could be really interesting to do. So I think the question, right, this is what we would grapple with as a team here for building this out. The question here of building the base is, what is the core that we want students to understand? I think for me, it is this idea of social norms and regulation and control, and historically, like, what we allow and enable people to do. So, for example, I might look at different groups. I might look at racialized emotion, gendered emotion. I don't know how I want to phrase this, like national or migration status. Like, depending on your immigration status or your nationality, do you have the right to feel particular emotions, particularly with regard to the United States, right? I also think about groups like Indigenous groups that have been racialized and politicized. And so it is both a racial and a national emotion or connected to those groups. I think also like age, like who gets to like emotion and age, right? A lot of students might have younger siblings where we connect to like, oh, the baby can cry because the baby can cry. But like, at what point does the baby not get to cry anymore, right? It becomes an adult. And, obviously it's a wide range, but like, it might be really interesting to kind of discuss that. And then I think bring this project question, I know I always like doing this, to a Socratic seminar discussion. So we've talked about kind of all these examples. And I say text-based here because what I would be doing for each of these is we would be looking at, and I think co-creating with student discussion here, text-based, so it'd be a little bit of text, a little bit of discussion, but we would kind of be looking at how emotions are treated when they come from particular racial groups, from particular genders, from particular, right? And like, so we would use a text or a graph of data or quotes from people who have experienced oppression based on their expression of emotion, that kind of thing. And so we would do like a little gallery walk perhaps each day. Like, I think that would be a really cool, I think for honestly all of them, because there's so much here. You might even have to extend this by like double this time and do like 2 days for each of these categories. So we have kind of like who gets to feel their feelings. And I think the heart of this, right, is this. Ooh, okay. You know what? Now I'm wondering. Okay. This is exactly what this process looks like. So what we're going to do, I'm changing it up. Oops. I am changing it up. We are going to bring these down. And I know these colors are going to be all off. I will change them for us. What I'm doing here is I'm realizing that this is not what I wanted for Build the Base. This is why it is so tricky sometimes. What I think is actually more important for Build the Base, and I think we're gonna kind of go through this and we'll look at case studies. Like I said, maybe we'll do, let's do 2 per day. Perfect. So we have emotion and age. We're gonna do those 2 days. We have national and migration status, we're going to do those for 2 days. So what I'm doing here is because I actually think these are case studies because they're different applications of a core concept. Now, the core concept I initially thought was this idea of like the tropes or like the ways that we enable people to, whatever. I'm going to think of a new one here or just take that out. And I think what I'm realizing is the base needs to be more like why feelings are important. So like mental health and feelings connection. So I'm not an expert on this. So I would do maybe like something with the counselor, mental health and feelings. Maybe I would do like intro for like a day or 2, and then I would do like a check-in with their with students' selves, and they would do like a feelings journal or inventory in which they're kind of thinking about this idea. So this could be like journaling practice or something, and this could be like text-based. But I think it could also be like interactive lecture here with like a health person or an expert kind of coming in. This could be like a guest lecture. Some like a lot of information here we're diving in, but we're also doing some check-ins along the way. And this actually changed to like, why is it essential for justice, for health, to feel our feelings, right? And then it's like who can and who can't. I'm thinking more here. Okay, what I would do, actually, let's not spend 2 days on each. I mean, we absolutely could, but let's just envision this option. And honestly, like this is what the process looks like. This is why I'm making this video, because I think like some people will be like, wait, no. And then I already wrote this down. I have to go with it. You absolutely don't. It's why you can hit delete. So let's do all the different types of identity and emotion, but then let's flip it and let's look at the case studies. Let's do this. Who gets to feel their feelings? We get to do a Socratic seminar here. And then we are now going to look at how, that is going to be the next one. How can we make sure everyone can safely feel their feelings, right? This might be like well, we could do human barometer where students kind of stand on one side of it. We do some agree, disagree statements, but we could also do maybe kind of like a right around. And we could try to work on like a formula. What's the formula for? I love formula questions. What's the formula for making people, getting people to be able to feel their feelings? And so what I'm thinking for the 3 preceding case studies, or however many there are, is like, here's where this went well. So like school district, policy, and results, right? Community, program, and results. It might just be like pulling some samples, and I think these ideally would be local, but they don't have to be. And so it would be like, here's what this group did because they realized that this stuff was going on. And then they instead, did something different. And then here's the results. Here's where we see the students feeling better about themselves, having better mental health. I think there's a really good documentary. There's a lot of documentary on like gender and emotions on Netflix. I would look into that one maybe. And so we have all these examples of like, how can we do this better? And so the first half is like very analysis, and the second half is very like buildy. Like, how do we build something better? And then the application would be the students going through. Still with me, especially coaches, that kind of thing where you're like, this, no, completely new idea. This, nope, still changing it. That is where the magic happens. That's actually like what is natural, I think, when we're really pushing our thinking. If you don't have one of those in this creation time, I really think we want to like be asking the questions of, okay, what is it that you really want? So again, coaching frame here. When you're doing this, ask the question, what is the core? Like, what is the core? And then what are the different ways this shows up? So you saw my mistake in there was really starting with this is how this shows up, because that's my analytical brain. I'm always looking for like, how do different groups experience this? But how do different groups experience this is literally like a practical definition of the case study phase. So the core needs to be like, why is this important? And then it can be like, how does it show up? And then it can be, what can we do about it? Oh, I like that. Okay. So anyways, I hope that was helpful. Super long. Thank you. Stay tuned. We'll do more in the future.